Somerset looked at the clock. It was almost 2 a.m. He had been in bed for more than an hour, but he was still awake. He had too much to think about. After 23 years as a homicide detective, it was never easy for him to go to sleep. A homicide detective sees humanity at its very worst. He sees murders of every imaginable sort. People killed with guns, knives, poison. Husbands killing wives, and wives killing husbands. Children killing parents. Friends killing friends. And people killing strangers. Sometimes to rob them. Sometimes for no reason at all. But now Somerset was leaving. He had only 7 more days left before he retired. Then he could leave the city, forget the crime he had seen, and live quietly in the country. He had seen enough of the violence and crime of the city. His pictures and his books were packed and ready to move to his new house in the country. Only 7 more days. He thought of how long he had lived in the city. He had been married twice. At one time he had wanted to have children, but not in the city. He knew what living in the city did to children, but deep in his heart, he felt that it wasn't right not to have children. It isn't too late, he thought. 45 isn't too old to have children. He still might meet someone. It was possible. Anything was possible once he got the hell out of here. Suddenly, his stomach was tight. He was making a mistake. He had lived his whole life in the city. What if he hated the country? He tried to stop himself thinking and go to sleep. It will all be okay, he told himself. Only 7 more days of crime, of the noise and mess and violence in the city, and then his life would start all over again. That afternoon, he had visited the house he was buying in the country. The house was old and needed some fixing, but he liked it. On the way back to the city, he sat on the train and watched the farms and fields go by. But the countryside became drier and the farm turned into desert. Soon he began to see burned cars out there on the dry, empty land. He knew that they were getting close to the city. Somerset could see smoke and dust hanging over the city like the hand of an angry god. When the train stopped, he didn't want to get out. He wanted to stay in his seat until it took him back to his new house. But it was only 7 days. He told himself. He could manage another 7 days. After 23 years, what is 7 days? Out on the street, as he waited for a taxi, the terrible reality of the city hit him hard. The noise of the traffic, people running, shouting, screaming, and nobody caring. A crazy homeless man was trying to take a tourist suitcase. "I'll get you a taxi," the crazy man shouted. "I know how. I'll get you one." But the tourist, whose wife and daughters were afraid, didn't want his help. They didn't want him there. Somerset was going to help, but he couldn't do it. He couldn't be responsible for everything if he was ever going to escape this place. People had to solve their own problems. He got into a taxi and told the driver to take him home. On the way, they passed an ambulance and 2 police cars. Somerset could see a body on the sidewalk. He saw the bloody face and wondered if the man was still alive. On the next street, a fight began. A crowd stood around the fighting man, shouting. As they passed, Somerset back in his seat and closed his eyes. He didn't want to see any more.